Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the DFS Down Under show for this special ANZAC Day edition of the show. Smatho 10 back here in my lovely Ode to Service Australian New Zealand gear. Big day today, big ANZAC Day at the G, big ANZAC Day clash at the Storm at the moment in Melbourne, and also with the Roosters today. We're in a nice relaxed mood this evening. We've still got a big AFL slate to get through. Oh, hang on. Who's that?
Not
Is that
relaxed.
Hef giving me the big boo? Hef. Jeez, controversial boos still ring out here on the show. Hef, how are you this evening?
I'm just getting my last booze in before they try and ban it from the sporting universe, Smatho. And those boos are for that cycling get-up you've turned up in. What's going on there? You've got arms like... You told me you used to play rugby. Those arms never played rugby, Smatho.
No, this is actually this is New Zealand, the black cap shirt that I purchased 10 years ago now, and I've just seemed to fill it out. So, what is that wearing on your head? Is that our limited edition draft star cap that we are actually going to give away today?
It's not the one we've given away. No, we...
Actually, bullshit. I reckon it is.
You put a couple of these in my suitcase at the biggest bash, Smatho. So I've pulled it out. We've given one away today. That was awesome to see how much engagement we got on that competition. They were coming from everywhere, throwing in their tips, and well done to the winner. You'll have the winner for us, Smatho.
Oh, I think it's the old DFS golf fan who's the only one who tipped Pendles. So by default, he picks up their cap. So well done to you, mate. Cap. Just a very comfy cap, and yes, very limited edition, but also we might have a couple sneaky to give away later in the year. What do you reckon?
Yeah, well,
not ahead.
As long as you don't give away mine.
Fair enough. All right, so two games have already happened in AFL round 6, and also there were big, huge games with last night and obviously ANZAC Day today. So as always, little Smatho 10s, 2 thumbs up for this week. 2 games we've got to go through. And let's go back to last night, the Melbourne and Richmond game, where we had a domination by one of our strong DFS players and also DFR member, Chris Eddy, 999. Went kaboom, first place and second place with a beautiful side in the particular contest. Hef, we talked about Maxi Gon being a lock. Little Schnag, Higgins also got a mention there. But what set apart this particular side that won the contest last night?
Well, I think it's that back line. We did go through a correlations video, actually, at the start of the season, Smatho, and we talked up Hooley and Vlaston, I think, from memory. And Chris Eddy, I noticed he had a number of lineups with that Hooley-Vlaston combo, and they just went berserk. 125, 124, and that set him up for the night. We talked up Recession's 1-2 effort last week, how good it was. There's another one there from Chris Eddy. Massive performance.
Massive performance, yeah. I was on the old WhatsApp thing, and did we talk about Vlaston last night? And I got crickets back, so unfortunately we kind of missed that one. But maybe we'll find another combo later in the show this evening. We went on to Friday. Oh, today, sorry, it's not Friday. Friday's ANZAC Day. Pies only just getting up, thanks to a couple of contentious decisions quite late here, and. Coming through with the chocolates was Brutal Deluxe with a score of 923. Also a big DFR member here. So make sure you get on the website, check his rankings and all his performances. Today, Brodie Grundy, we locked him in as well. Bit of Taylor Adams, Dylan Shield, and then obviously Pendles. Pendles were brilliant at 148. Set him up for the big win. Obviously, Pendles was highly owned. Where did he go right in this particular matchup?
Mark Bagley stands out. We've already seen a bit of chatter on Twitter. People aren't happy that the winning teams had Mark Bagley, but sometimes it's that off-the-wall selection that gets you the money. So, yeah, he won by 10 points. Obviously, we talked about Greenwood coming in. He didn't tag anyone. Dylan Shield got off the leash big time, 136. Jeremy Howe bounced back to form with a 98. Pretty competitive leaderboard there. A little shout out for Whizbang 42. He only throws in a couple of lineups every slate, and that's his 4th top 10 finish for the year in AFL. So if you get a bit disheartened seeing a number of these multi-entry guys taking some of the big spots, there's still the opportunity just to throw a couple of lineups in and come up with a big result like a little whiz bang.
A little whiz bang. Well, it's not a hard decision this week. I've only got 2 games to give my 2 thumbs up, and I have to go back to last night. If I go possession, the 2 thumbs up last week on Tuesday for the big performance. Chris Eddy, 999, well deserved. 2 thumbs up for you. Smashed it out. Hopefully, we'll see some more wins from the year. I will have to just a bit of a head wobble for myself. I just chucked a couple of teams in the NRL this afternoon. Little projections just come through, and little third place there, Hef for you. So,
oh wow,
Smatho is just not a little, just a little Smatho getting in the money in the mini. So, what do you think about that, Hef?
Better buy yourself a new top, Smatho. Work on those arms a bit more. Maybe. Get yourself a new road bike. I'd love to see you put that money into or go to a good course, Smatho. Keep at it, mate. You're a star.
Thanks, Hef. Look, we'll have to give a little sneaky mention out to our Play On Super Contest winner today. Since you gave me a little clip, I'm going to clip you back. Please tell me who won the Super Contest today.
Is it very nice hand, good game? Haha, gee, that's my best go at his handle. It's a bit,
no.
That's if he did play poker. I could be totally off the wrong hand then, but yeah, no. Good result for. I've seen him around a lot on Draft Stars as well. I assume it's the same guy. It's a pretty unique username. Yeah, so good as.
No, unfortunately, I didn't have any tickets in that particular contest because I'm not such a bit of a tight ass, as you probably know, Hef. So possibly I might get into another Play On contest later this year. They might do some more qualifiers. Hopefully, another Super Contest later this year. So. If you haven't checked out Play On, get on our DFR website, check the review for the DFR for Play On. We also run a great contest for Formula One, being the official fantasy provider there, and also NBA is kind of wrapping up soon. So make sure you get on the site and have a quick look there over there as well. All right, let's get stuck into more footy, Hef. What do you think?
Yeah, sounds good. Plenty to come.
Sounds good. All right, Friday night footy. Premium matchup, this one, Port Adelaide in Adelaide versus the under siege North Melbourne Kangaroos. Currently, Port are warm favourites. Look, I haven't updated the line since this afternoon, but we had it at 26.5. Total points of 173.5. Draft Stars have put up a $40,000 single slate contest, with Moneyball also doing an $8,000 contest for this matchup. In team news, we've got a couple of ins for the Kangaroos, with McDonald coming back from suspension. Taron Thomas and Larkley are in for North, while Port, who do the good thing by the fantasy community, they announce their side usually early in the day and told they were going to have an unchanged side, which they duly put up this evening. Bit of narrative for this. Obviously, Pittard and Pollock are going back to the Adelaide Oval against their old side, so there could be a little bit of a narrative in terms of their performances. No issues with the weather, so I don't think there'll be any issues with that. Hef, initial thoughts on this particular Friday night matchup?
Do you reckon Pittard and Pollock remember they play for Port? They're two pretty space cadets. I don't know. I don't even know if they know where they are. But like everyone just expects Port to win this by 50, 60 points, and well, except the book, he's 26.5 is a pretty big line. If you go on form, North Melbourne were just horrendous last week. Port Adelaide were sensational against the Eagles. But let's not forget that Port killed Melbourne round one. That doesn't look any good anymore, or as a big an upset as what it was in round one. But then they went home and they were pushed all the way by Carlton. And then they got beat over there by a really undermanned Richmond. So maybe they've turned the corner this year, Port, but I'm still just a bit wary that they've had plenty of time just to sit back and think about how good they are this week. And North Melbourne, Brad Scott would have been turning the lights off and throwing chairs in the coach's room. Well, if they can't get up to this game, well, maybe Port will coast. That's what I'm trying to get at in a very long way.
The sneaky, we've already got the 4 points in the bag narrative. So, is this going to come out in your fantasy tips this week? Let's have a look at this particular matchup. DFR website on the cheat sheets on our resources page. You look on the right-hand side of that single slate contest, and it shows that everything's kind of even in terms of the fantasy points for and against. But when you get to the midfield for the top three, North are leaking so many points, the top three midfielders, and also with the rucks too. Poor old Goldie's not keeping the lid things. I'm sorry, keeping a lid on things on fantasy scoring for a ruck. So that's pretty much the two edges that we have here from the data. So let's have a look at the rucks as always. We've got Goldie at 11.2, Ryder at 10K, and Lyset at $9,800 is the three main options for your rucks this week. We all have them predicted around the 75 to 85 mark. So who do you think we should be targeting here on these rucks?
I love my man Scotty Lyset in this particular matchup. Whether it pays off remains to be seen, but I think he's the guy that can go big of the three of them. He does share time with Ryder, but earlier in the year against Carlton, he had a big ton. And Goldie, we've sort of been touching on Goldie for a while, that he's a sneaky good option to come up against for rucks if you're looking for fantasy points. Big boy McAvoy had 127 against North earlier in the year, and that was when he was sharing ruck time with Johnny Segler actually as well. So he only had 56% of the Hawk hitouts that day, courtesy of our ruck analysis tool, and he had 105 points around the ground. So I'm pretty happy to play Scotty Lyset in this matchup, and no one has scored more than 88 points in the ruck all year against Port. So I'm thinking that might cap Goldstein's upside. So I think, especially in terms of tournaments, Lyset is the man to be looking at.
I reckon Lyset too. You'll probably be the highest of the three rucks there, but it's very good analysis for Hef, and I think that will stay true, barring injury tomorrow night. Let's have a look at the mid straight away. I want to look at these mids because this new phrase came out from Port after the game last week. It's called dirty ball. We're winning a lot of dirty ball. Does that mean dirty ball is fantasy points? I'm not quite sure. But North is not quite at the contested footy at the moment. So can we make a case for any of the North players, or are we just going to go with the Port Adelaide studs?
Even those games I'm talking about that Port maybe took it a little bit easier, they still had the highest scoring fantasy guys, the names like Boak, Rockcliffe, Ebert, and now they've got Ollie Wines to add to the mix as well, who was back in form last week against the Eagles. Even if they take them easy, I think it might be more a case of overusing the footy rather than North beating them in the middle. So it's going to be pretty popular, but I do think those main Port mids are still going to score very well.
Very good, very good. Draft Stars have given some nice salaries for our defenders this week, which includes Burton and Burn-Jones around that 10K mark. But I think they're going to be a bit too chalky for my kind of liking. So can we go back to the North side, considering the ball might be down there a lot for a bit of Tarrant or McMillan?
Yeah. Well, if they're under siege, they might look to chip it around and hold on to the ball. So those two guys you mentioned have both got 10x upside. So there's nothing wrong with playing them if that's an angle you want to take. And in terms of correlations, after speaking about Hooley and Vlaston last night, Tarrant and Scotty Thompson have a really good correlation, and they're both pretty cheap. So you might want to pop them in a lineup if you're trying to get away from just a full Port stack.
Now, I'm having some issues with my particular camera here, the guys at the moment, so I'm going to go into emoji mode. I'll keep the audio going. That's probably a better look when you think when you look at this particular emoji coming up for me. So if I get my camera cranking again, I'll be back for the old lads and gals who watch this. So let's push on though. In the media, Zeeble is getting pillar to post by standing in the goal square. What's going to happen here? I think there was a selection this evening, Hef, that you might want to explain that might actually help Zeeble tonight.
Yeah, so there was a bit of talk coming out of North Melbourne that Zeeble's going to go into the middle finally and give him a bit more grunt there. And there's an in called Nick Larky. He's not very well known. I don't even think he's played before, but he is a tall forward So maybe he's been brought in the team just to release Evil into the midfield. And God knows they need him in there. So it's always a little bit risky sort of banking on especially comments from a guy like Brad Scott, but maybe it's time for Zeeble to show what he's made of. And if that does happen, he's really well priced.
Now, speaking of risky, the Hoff is now plummeted all the way down to 10K. Is that a good idea tomorrow to get on the Hoff train?
Well, it's hard to talk you out of the Hoff if you do think it's going to be a Port Adelaide massacre. He obviously scored 120 points when he kicked 5 goals against Melbourne. If it's going to be a whitewash, then yeah, that's in play. But he's definitely a tournament option. I wouldn't be playing him in cash games by any stretch.
Fair enough. Sprinkle him in and see how he goes. If he doesn't perform, he's going to be even cheaper next week. That's all right. So, sneaky bets, sneaky plays. I've got my little sneaky play. I've got here Travis Boak, $8 for the medal. He's just going to be ex-captain performance, so that's my little $8 sneaky play. Do you have any up in your sleeve?
That seems pretty good odds for a bloke who's killing it like Boak. I lean to North at the line just because it's going against the grain a bit there. And that theory I mentioned about Port taking their foot off the gas. So if I had to have a bet, that's the angle I would take.
I'm in form, by the way, Hef. I got the +40 on Richmond the other night, so my sneakies are in form. Just close, so take note.
Never in doubt that one, Smatho.
Get your pen out. Get your pen out. Right, left-handed. Sneaky bet. $8. All right. Move on to Saturday. So 4-game slate here on Saturday afternoon into the evening. Draft sales are popped out a $40,000 contest with a Moneyball $5,000 contest as well. In terms of when the teams came out for this, we've actually got teams for once here on a Thursday night for Saturday, so which is a bit for us. But there's no real significant news. The only thing that pops to mind is Haitley from GWS, which was a really good play last week, has actually been omitted. And then we've got a couple of guys who are going to be key for the Gold Coast and Brisbane, including Josh Corbett, who's a forward who's been clunking 10-plus marks the last couple of weeks in the NEAFL. But you can't really read much into the NEAFL. It's pretty much the Witches' Hat League there. So yeah. I'm not sure about Corbett.
Your arms will take 10 marks too, Smatho, in the NEAFL.
Yeah, and the Witches' Hat. Yeah, might be a chance in the NEAFL. So we got the Q Clash straight up. So lines are there at 14.5 of 171 total. The Saints and Adelaide are really able to pick them there at 1 point to the Saints at 168 total. The Sydney game, Sydney GWS, is going to be a great game to watch, but I don't think it's going to be a great game for fantasy, which is 13.5 to GWS for 163 total. And then we finish up with the Perth Clash over at Fremantle and the Bulldogs with Freya's got 15.5. So not real big lines and not real big points totals here. So it's going to be a bit hard picking the bones out of this particular slate. The weather or the totals moving too much. As always, get onto our DFR website and check out the resources and our cheat sheets for Saturday slates. Let's start again with the rucks on Saturday. I can see one sticking out like a sore thumb already in Shane Mumford at 10.2. For myself, I think he's going to be chalk. But he's got 380s in return, so he's going to be, quite reliable barring injury. Both Brisbane and Gold Coast are very stingy in the rucks, but they've got the two highest kind of guys on the slate, including Martin and Witts. Is there any rucks here that take your fancy outside of Mumford?
Look, I do agree with you with Mumford. He doesn't seem to have a huge ceiling, Mumford, but he does seem pretty safe to get you that 80. And like Sinclair's a great guy to target every week in the rucks, so he'll be chalk, but he's very safe in a slate which doesn't really have a lot to speak of for the rucks. Like Tim English going over there to Freo, they've brought Jackson Trengove into the team. So that's probably going to reduce his amount of time in the ruck, which makes him hard to play after his big 100 last week. As you say, Witts and Steph Martin and Big Oscar, they'll probably cancel all each other out, especially Witts at that big price. Maybe look at Saints and Crows, and we can holler for a Marshall, Smatho. Big Rowan.
Yes, the holler.
So he has had 120 this year. Witts had 123 on O'Brien last week. He's up at around 12K, Marshall, so it seems pretty top end for him. But He's very mobile ruckman, and if you want to get away from Mumford and maybe get a bit more upside, maybe at a less ownership, maybe Marshall's the guy to have a look at.
No, I like Marshall. Also, he got towed up by Maxi Gorn last week, but I think a good bounce back game. I wish he was a little bit cheaper, like the 11.5, but hey, we'll see how we go. Now defence. Now we're talking. We've got Lockie Whitfield and Jakey Lloyd here, two pretty much the highest owned, highest guys for this Saturday slate. But we're going to be paying up for these two, or we're going to be looking for some scraps here, because also we know what Lloyd does, we know what Whitfield does, but where can we get away from these guys, or even just one of them?
Lloyd's had 120 plus every game this year, so it's really hard to get away from him. He's still like 16,000. It's not exorbitant by any imagination. One thing we will look in that GWS Sydney game is we've got two taggers to deal with. We've got Matty DeBoer, who's just been slicing people up this year. So he's going to be looking for someone from Sydney to tag. There's not a whole lot standing out this year for Sydney. JK is looking a little bit slower. Parker's been up and down for about 3 years. Is there a greater than 0% chance that he goes to Lloyd? A lot of people say Lloyd just gets a lot of useless kicks in the back line, and why would you want to stop him? But he does start a lot of their scoring drives. So maybe there's a little chance he goes to him and reduces his effectiveness, but if he doesn't, you can probably lock in another 120 from Lloyd, even though GWS are pretty hard to score against down back.
Well, we were scratching our heads when Hewitt went to lead when Adelaide were up there. Would that work again? The old GWS could see that, like, hey, that kind of actually work, and let's just stop their pocket run from the back line.
Yeah, they might look at that. And then obviously on the flip side there, that Hewitt might go to Whitfield on that same sort of thinking. Josh Kelly usually gets a bit of attention, or maybe Cornelio gets a look. But Hewitt, I think we said on Tuesday night, Hewitt was just god-awful last week against Richmond when he had the footy. So he probably should be tagging. And in that case, Whitfield has got to be one of the guys in the mix. He is gettable, Whitfield, because he just gets a lot of uncontested ball. He's not a seagull by any stretch, but if you do want to try and shut one down, he's the type of player you can get. So there probably is some chance that Hewitt goes to Whitfield. And do you want to play a guy at 16,000 who's getting attention? I don't really want to.
No, me neither. Okay, well, let's find some scraps then. Any other games? As I said, I didn't really keen on this Sydney game. Was there any other scraps for the defenders that you can point out for us?
You can probably still look at the other Swans, like Harry Cunningham. It seems
my boy.
It's your boy. It seems ridiculous to be thinking of playing Harry Cunningham at the price he's getting up to now, but he's getting as much cheap stuff as Lloyd, it seems like. In terms of who gives up a lot of points to backs, we can look at the Saints do. So maybe we look at the Crows. Last week we saw Salem, Marty Hoare. They scored big numbers against the Saints. So maybe we look at Brodie Smith, Rory Laird, even the guys like Talia and Kelly, who are at cheaper options. Maybe that's a spot you can go a bit cheaper in your back line against the Saints.
All right. Good takes. I like it. Nice to see the emoji back for me as well. So sorry again if I've been playing up tonight. Can't be helped. You can blame the election, I guess. So make sure you vote for someone who gives a shit about NBN. Now, midfield. I was on the Robotham train last week at 5K, and I kind of missed the Haitley mail. So I was kind of bummed that Robotham didn't pull through and beat Haitley. Poor old Haitley's been dropped, so that leaves Robotham as my sneaky free square this week. I'm going straight back to him at that under 6K price tag, because looked up his stats prior coming into the Swan side from the Neefle. And as I said, it is a Witches Hat League, but he was getting 25 plus possessions, plus tackles, plus marks, plus everything. Great fantasy scoring. So Matho's little sneaky tip, go back to Robotham. But also Hef, our little secret player, Ollie Florent. He's coming out season is just blossoming now. Careful. 99 points per grade. Let's call it a ton. He's turned up last 2 weeks. He's still under 10K. So He's my second kind of really sneaky lock for the week. So where else can I go? I've got 2 midfielders already. Where else can I go in the mids on this particular slate?
Yeah, last time we mentioned Ollie Florent, the whole system crashed. So careful there, Smatho. Did you fall
Yeah.
asleep last week when I threw out Hatley for you?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right, move on. Yeah, well, he did get 60 last week, Rowbottom. That was against Richmond, let's be honest.
Yeah.
GWS is going to be a bit harder to score against, but he's still under 6,000, so
Look,
yeah,
he gets to play against the Resis every fourth
playable.
week. Yeah, well, he gets to play against the Resis every fourth week, so he should know the GWS off the back of his hand.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yes.
There's not a whole lot of value on the slate, so he's definitely up there as one of the best value options. I'll give you that. Will Hayes is another one. He was so popular last week, Sunday. It was in my wedding lineup. Thanks for coming, Smatho. No need for the pom-poms. Apart from those two, he's got to go to Freo now, so that's a total different kettle of fish. There's not many other obvious cheap options apart from them. Maybe you can look at some of the midfielders from Brisbane, obviously, because they come up against the Gold Coast. Lockie Neal is coming off a below par score last week, so he's reasonably priced, I guess you could say, 16,000 against the Gold Coast. Jared Berry is pretty consistent. Maybe target the Lions in your midfields, and Freo at home. Yeah, I think they're probably pretty easy team to target with some stacks against the Dogs too. So those midfielders are in pretty good form. Freo knocked off GWS. Who could have seen that coming? They're the two teams I'll be looking at for my midfielders.
Sure. Yep. Brisbane, Freo. I think they're the two teams that you should be looking for higher end players for this week. So then I go to the forwards, and then like, oh geez, Jack Billings is the highest guy on the slate, this particular one. So I might be paying down for these kind of guys here. I did watch the Freo game. I actually really liked Jesse Hogue game last week with Taberner clunking everything inside 50. He was just roaming half forward to half back, getting some cheap kicks out back too late in the game. So I think I might go back to Jesse Hogan again, hopefully continuing his form there. Who else can I have a look here in terms of the forwards, considering there's not much really to get excited about here?
He could have had about 160, the Tabby Cat, last week. He was just everywhere. If he just works out how to kick, then sky's the limit for him. So now they get a great matchup against Freo. So yeah, even though they're sort of 12k a pop in your forward line, and you're going to need to trade down somewhere else, I couldn't turn you away from then. Mickey Walters is another great pivot off those guys at a similar price. Cam McCarthy's back in the team, I think. He gives you that cheaper option if you're trying to target the Dogs. Obviously, Harry McKay just went berserk last week against the Dogs too, up forward. So, yeah, it's pretty easy to find those Freo guys. Looking away from them, you mentioned Ollie Florent. We can play him as a forward as well. Tommy Papley's running through the midfield, and he scored really well against Richmond last week. And one of my favourites, Blake Acres, is still only 10,000. He's coming off a pair of 90s. He's got this weird Sean Griggs second ruck roll that seems to get him into the game. Looks like he's going in slow motion, but he's got genuine upside still at 10,000.
Excellent. Well, good luck for that particular Saturday slate. It's going to be a little bit tough, but as I said, a couple of teams to avoid and a couple of teams to target. So as always, check out our resources on the website too. Give your hand to your teams, and also you always drop a line to Al Hef. He's the current champion here, so just make sure if you've got any questions, get on to Hef. Now, Sunday, little two game slate again. 30,000 on DraftStars, 4,000 on Moneyball. We've got Hawthorn down to me playing Carlton. Rare trip for Carlton down to Tassie, which is quite nice. Hawks have got a 19.5 line with 166 total. And Geelong will be down to Cattery versus the West Coast. And they've been given a 16.5 line as well for the Cats with 160 total. So this little two-gamer here, I'm going to really be thinking about the Hawks. I'm going to hit the limit for 5 players because I think Carlton's going to have a little bit of a letdown after their win last week. And I think I'm going to go straight to old Ricky Henderson and Jaeger Amir at 14K. I guess you can't really make a case for the Eagles mids or the West Coast. The Geelong mids as well. Who do you think stud-wise for this particular slate on Sunday?
Yeah, I think you nailed those two there, Smatho. Are you going up to watch your Blue Baggers?
I might actually think about it.
Well,
See, I get a leave pass. They're targeting leave passes this time of year because it's actually the Dale's wedding anniversary on Sunday. So
we'll get the bike out maybe right up there to Launceston. I think you nailed it too. There's two games, like these are chalk and cheese, these two games. Hawthorn versus Carlton and we all know that, what's Launceston called? The UTAS Stadium these days.
UTAS, UTAS.
Yeah. If you're not aware of Hobart, UTAS are buying everything down here. You can't go anywhere without a new hotel they've bought just to house everyone. But so they're buying everything. They bought the stadium rights. There's been some huge fantasy scores at that stadium over the past few years. And like Carlton obviously give up a lot of points. Hawthorn aren't the stingiest team themselves. I think we're going to see, if you want to stack a game in a 2-game slate, that's the one, Hawthorn Carlton. Like you said, Henderson, O'Meara, they're just so well priced. Yeah, I'd be all over that game. Big boy McAvoy, like Carlton, have been leaking points to rucks. Cruiser came back last week. We thought maybe that'll affect it, and Tim English got a big ton. So, yeah, that's a massive game to target.
Massive game. Look, little shout out for a little Supercoach watchers here this evening. I'm seriously considering bringing Henderson into my side once I get enough cash out of the rookies. He's currently top 10 in the midfield for Supercoach, and he's going to be around 3% owned. So, little early tip: if you got a chance to get up to Henderson,
all right, that'll pull him up pretty quick then, won't it? What about value? Do you like any value options Sunday, Smatho?
I'm liking Gibbons now. I think most people will like Gibbs too because he's been released from the old pocket lead up for Carlton. He's now roaming the wings and in the mids now. So I think old Bolts has just realised, hey, I need to get him in the cold face. I know he's only a little whippet, but he's going to smash value at around that 8K, which I'm happy to pay for. What about Hef? Any value here from these two games?
I actually like Mitch Lewis against the Cats last week. I didn't play a whole lot of him. I think young key forward, they're not really going to go berserk in terms of fantasy, but he scored pretty well. And the Cats are a hard team to score against if you're a big forward. So Carlton on the flip side, I think he's going to get plenty of opportunity down there. So he's still around 5K, I think. So, yeah, he stood out to me. And even though I did mention big boy McAvoy, really well priced, he did go off with a knock on the hip against the Cats. I noticed they brought in Segsy into the extended squad. Maybe when you're looking to target the rucks against Carlton, it could be worth looking at Segsy if they want to maybe lessen the load on big boy, depending how he pulled up. That's just a bit of a shot in the dark. He might not even get in the team, Segsy, but yeah, that's just something to keep an eye on, I think.
All right. Look, I'm glad the emoji's gone. the arms are back, which is great. In terms of my sneaky, I've got a little sneaky for Sunday as well. A little multi. I like West Coast into Hawthorn at plus 40 again. Gives a little bit of value for there. So if you want to follow that, probably don't. But hey, it's a sneaky. Also, check out Dragon's tips on the Z website as well. He's been in a little bit of form now. He's just realised that going for these little cheap shots are not quite working. So he's just starting to run in a bit of form. What do you think, Hef, the old Dragon?
Dragon, yeah, he is. I tend to agree with you on that West Coast take, actually. I'm obviously biased, but Geelong's coming off that huge game Monday against Hawthorn. Short break. West Coast have had a lot of time to stew about that loss to Adelaide. Now the shoot's going to be dry. I was looking at the weather. Looks like it's going to be dry. I don't think Geelong have it in them to play some sort of dirty ball thing that Port Adelaide were running with. They're going to play proper footy. Yeah, maybe it's a good spot for West Coast to turn it around.
All right. Some quick shout-outs before we go. NRL continues this week. We've got a great game this evening. I haven't checked any scores yet because my NBN is pretty shit. So keep an eye on the NRL contests, especially the Friday games are pretty good. If you can't be bothered doing the North Melbourne games, all right, jump on the NRL Friday night. Pretty good. The F1s in Azerbaijan is also a good Sunday night viewing. It's the best racetrack on the calendar, to give you the tip. So if you're not doing anything Sunday night, tune in on the F1s. Check out our preview. If you want to get on a play on and chuck a couple of teams in, do that as well. And then obviously the golf will be back next week as well. So I'll have the previews for next week's golf. All right, let's wrap it up here tonight. It's been a big day. It's been a big week for us here at DFR, and obviously our members have been doing pretty well lately. Any parting thoughts before we wrap it up tonight?
No, that's about it for me. Is that on the bucket list for you, Smatho, Azerbaijan? Take a couple of laps around there?
Yeah. Take a couple of laps. I'm not sure where it is, but hey.
Good work, Smatho.
I'm ending the show now because I'm ending the show now. This is the last time we're in this top. Obviously, it's offended you. Get that limited edition hat off because we're going to be giving it away. Check out our Twitter and then guess those points. Maybe we'll have a different format this time for the hat, considering today was a bit ambiguous. So, look, on behalf of the team here at DFR, make sure you check out our website, dailyfantasyrankings.com.au. Hit us up on Twitter, and we'll be back at the normal night of Wednesday night next week to continue the DFS Down Under show. Thanks for everyone joining us, and we'll catch you on the leaderboards. See you later.